Hello and welcome back to the channel and a new year. Happy 2022 everybody. So today on the channel I'm going to be talking about one of my all-time favourite films, that is Kodak Tri-X, an absolute classic over 80 years old, and we'll be getting into exactly why it's one of my favourites and how it survived just that long. Whether you are new to film photography or a long-time analog enthusiast, our channel covers all things film, from tips and tricks, film reviews to how-to videos. Subscribe now and keep those notifications turned on so that you never miss a beat. Happy shooting! So Kodak Tri-X is known as a legendary black and white film. Where does that come from? So it's over 80 years old. It was first produced in sheet film before it made its way into 35mm into roll film. And it drove a lot of the photography that you'll have seen in black and white across the 60s and 70s in particular. Lots of famous photojournalists in particular shot it. Don McCullum is probably one of the biggest historical advocates for it. In fact, fun fact, when Kodak filed for bankruptcy in 2012, Don McCullum panic bought hundreds of rolls of Tri-X because he was super worried that it would never be made again. Fortunately for both Mr. McCullum and the rest of us, it of course survived in Kodak's new era and is still available today in 35mm, 120 sheet film, and of course now in the disposable cameras. Why did Don McCullum love it so much? Why did so many people love it at the time? Well, it was very forgiving. It's always known for being very forgiving, very flexible. So it will give you decent contrast. It's a 400 speed, but it can be pushed or pulled reasonably well. It can also be used with different combinations of developer to get different levels of grain. The characteristic of it, if you compare it to something like HP5, which is obviously Ilford, also 400 speed, then you would say Tri-X is similar, but with more grain, more contrast, and in my view, a bit more character. Frankly, it's why I love it so much. You'll have heard me talk about this before. I'm a bit of a contrast junkie. Tri-X gives me that little bit of contrast, bit more atmospheric grain without it being totally over the top. So for everyday shooting, it's a fantastic film. So folks knew that they could take it out in the field and that they could shoot it in war zones like Don McCullum, or in covering various different stories all around the world, loads of different lighting situations. Photojournalists knew that they could rely on it to get great results. And they also knew that they could then tweak what they'd shot by using different developers, by using different developing processes to get a very personal look. I sat down to talk to John Maida, the guy behind Massive Dev Chart, that if you guys home develop, you will know this website very, very well. We'll link to it below. It is the sort of crowdsourced community bible for different developing formulae, recipes for different films. And when I asked John about his favourite film, as you might expect from someone who runs Massive Dev Chart, he said you can't just talk about a film, you have to talk about a developer as well. But when I eventually pushed him to an answer, he said Tri-X and Rodinal. That is his desert island shooting combination. So it really is endorsed by some absolutely top quality photographers who understand the technical ability, as well as folks like me who have nowhere near the same level of chemical understanding and developing prowess. But frankly, I put it in, I shoot it, and the results I get back from the lab are just absolutely what I love, what I hope for. There we go. This feels like a very long sort of love song to Tri-X, but honestly, there's a reason for that. It is very well loved, it is very reliable, and people love it for very different reasons. Now, the things that you will see from a technical point of view, as I said, a bit more contrast, a bit more grain than HP5 as a good comparison. Also versus Kodak's T-Max 400, you'll see a bit more character, a bit more atmosphere, a bit more grain than those kind of professional level films that are designed for minimal grain, maximum detail. So you'll get a really gorgeous, classical looking black and white photo. We actually ran the Kodak competition this time last year, on Tri-X, the Tri-X Factor. And if you go back and see those images, and we'll share some, I'm sure, across this video, you will see a fantastic range of subjects, range of lighting situations that show the full flexibility, the full gamut that this film can capture in a really, really impressive way. I'm going to read a couple of customer reviews as well. I think they're really helpful for understanding what the community thinks and feels. People talk about the inky tone of the photos. They talk about the unique characteristic of it. I think that's the atmosphere, the grain that I mentioned before. They do say that something like HP5 tends to push slightly better. What you get with Tri-X is the contrast and grain goes up quite significantly. Again, that's totally up to you as to whether you like that in your photos. You can also pull it slightly, reduce a bit of that character, a bit of that grain, and get a much cleaner image if you would like. Personally, I'd probably just use a different film for that. The reason I love Tri-X is because of what it gives you. I wouldn't really seek to minimize its character, but it's an option if you so desire. Folks talk about the fact that you don't shoot it for a while, you come back to it, you will remember why you loved it so much in the first place. Someone wrote a very compelling story about how they used to shoot it a lot, moved on, tried a load of other things, but every time they come back to Tri-X, it's like an old friend. They just know how it works, they know what will give them, they know that they'll have fun with it, which I think is a wonderful thing to say about any emulsion. Someone else talks about pairing it with a red filter and you will never be disappointed. So they just pop a light red filter on regardless of what they're doing and they'll go around and shoot it. Now, we haven't talked a lot about filters with a panchromatic film. So I know we've talked about it with infrared, we've talked about it with orthochromatic. Panchromatic films obviously see across the entire spectrum. What a red filter do is obviously it cuts out some of that color spectrum and it gives your photos a different look. I think frankly we'll probably do a different video on it at some point about the effect of filters on black and white film. You'll see loads of examples online. But in this case, this person would recommend red filter, constantly on, Tri-X, the best combination possible. And that's it really. So the reason that it's in the Wonder Box this month is because as a 400 speed film, it will be able to cope well with low light, even if you don't need to push it to 800, 1600, although you can if you want. 400 speed, especially outdoors or indoors with decent lighting, should be more than enough to get really, really striking photos. And also, I kind of feel in the depths of winter, January, there's a lot of natural contrast out there on a sunny day when you get the really, there's no leaves, there's nothing to diffuse the light. If you get that harsh winter light, it's really going to show things up. And a nice contrasty photo is going to be absolutely gorgeous on Tri-X. Snow, I think, would look stunning. I've never shot Tri-X in snow before, but I do know that if we get any of that, if we're lucky enough to have any of that in the next few weeks, then this will be in my camera. If you're a Wonderbox subscriber, then please let me know what you think if you've shot it before, or if you were part of the Tri-X competition last year. Is there any reflections 12 months on? Have you shot some more with it? Have you learned some more? Did you look at the photos from the competition and think, oh, I really need to try that to try and replicate what someone achieved? Please do let me know in the comments below. Link to any Flickr albums or Instagram posts that you really enjoyed. Otherwise, I just hope you really, really enjoy it. I hope you fall in love with it as I have, as countless other people, famous and non-famous, have done in the past. I hope you can take some classic black and white images. That's what this is really about. Photos to treasure forever. And I will see you again next week.